So, first question. When did you first join the union, and how did that milestone impact your career trajectory?
I'm actually not a part of the union yet. I have booked several union jobs from ultra low budget SAG films to SAG short films, but every time I go to SAG thinking that I'm part of the union or I'm eligible, they're like, well, no, you're going to need 2 more union jobs, or, no, it's union, but it's not the union that will get you in the union. So I just keep struggling to get in, but I just keep working. It's funny because I auditioned for 95% of my auditions are for union, but clearly not the right union for me to get into SAG yet.
The big overall union.
Yeah.
What would it mean to you to be a part of SAG?
It'll mean everything. It'll mean that, I already feel like I'm a real actor. It will make things feel official. It'll make me feel as though I earned it, because it is hard as hell to get in. And when you finally get in, you know that, I know that I worked my butt off to get in. Yeah, it'll mean everything.
Absolutely. And you've always you see these actors that you look up to who are in SAG, and to have an opportunity to be in that same union, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's the cool kids club.
Can you share the first moment that you knew that acting was sort of the path that you wanted to take and pursue long term?
It would have to be in high school. I had an English teacher named Miss Taylor. She was like the youngest teacher at my high school. She was like 28, so we were all flirting with her. But but she was the theater teacher as well as the English teacher, and I was a class clown. Before class, always give me like 5 minutes in front of the class to act the fool and just kind of get it out of my system. But she recognized that I had talent aside from playing football, which I was known for in high school. I was a pretty good football player, but it was funny because on a high school graduation, she told my parents that I had a future in acting and not sports. So she was the first person that really saw something in me aside from sports. And then once she said that to me, I knew maybe there's something to acting, and I started to love it more than playing sports. So I knew that was the direction I was heading.
It's really interesting that you say that, because we were just talking about how when you're making stuff out here, which you'd love to make your own stuff, you often meet these young guys who you feel like have a ton of talent. And it seems like that in your past, there's been sort of a mentor role that has told you that you have potential to be in this industry. So what does it mean to you to hear something like that from someone you look up to, and then vice versa? What does it mean to you now to be a mentor to these younger guys and kind of see something in them, some potential?
For me, when my teacher had told me, and not only her, it was a lot of people in my path, whether it was friends, family, that would say, dude, you are funny, dude. You should be in Hollywood, this, that, and the third. Even when I was in the military, I had a lot of military brothers who's like, man, you're going to go do big things in acting. And that definitely put a battery in my back, because I knew what that felt like. I have a pretty good eye for talent. So when I see these younger artists, whether they're in front of the camera or behind, I was once them. And I always want to recognize, acknowledge younger talents. Say, hey, dude, you got something, and I would love to work with you. And if I'm a part of your journey to help you get to where you want to be, that's the biggest reward that I can ever receive. I don't ever want anything in return. I love helping people, and especially talented, hungry artists, because I was once in their shoes, and I'm still in their shoes, but it's nothing like giving someone confidence. It's big for me, so I always try to instill that, give that to other up-and-coming artists.
It just feels sort of like you feel like a collaborator at heart.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like hearing that. Looking back on your career, and obviously your career is still going, but so far, what role has been the most challenging for you to take on, and how did you overcome those difficulties?
Well, I think the most challenging role was a short film that I wrote called Fear of Shadows. And basically it was about a child predator who just got out of prison, and he's trying to get his life on track and trying to stay out of trouble, and he's forced to take these liquid castration pills. He starts to see things from his past that continue to haunt him. And when I was doing my research, started researching a lot of pedophiles and sex offenders and watching court trials and listening to these guys talk, and it creeped me out. It kept me up at night. And it was very interesting because I also directed Fear of Shadows as well as starred in it. In between changing of the sets, I would go to my car and I would watch a trial of a sex offender just to kind of get back into the mindset. And then I would play the character and then get out of it and have to direct or do whatever the case. It was a struggle doing all those jobs, but specifically playing that character, it was very, very difficult because I was terrified of it. I had some experience with that when I was a child. So it was kind of like facing my fears by getting into the mindset of a character like that.
Really interesting. And you, as you're writing, you mentioned, wearing all of those hats with that particular movie. As you're writing, you trend towards horror now, right? You have comedy chops, of course, but you seem to gravitate a little bit more toward horror. What about horror draws you to it?
This may sound strange, but a lot of the things that I write in horror I pull from personal experiences, and I just magnify them into monsters. Case in point, Fear of Shadows, which is probably the scariest monster to not only a child, but to a parent. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I went to war. A lot of the nightmares that I would have, I would turn into stories. So it just lends itself to horror. And so it's monsters, but it's a little sprinkles of reality in it, which kind of makes it different.
Yeah, I think that that's a really cool story to me, because I think that a lot of people will look at somebody with PTSD, a former military member, and feel sorry for them, I guess. That's a really difficult struggle to go through, and you're sort of like living case in point that you can turn that struggle into something that's really unique and special. Talk to me a little bit about, what it took for you to figure out that PTSD was actually going to be, for lack of a better word, a tool for you to create something.
Well, I moved here roughly about 17 years ago, and I was only like 2 months removed from Iraq. So I never really had an adjustment period, to Los Angeles. I kind of just moved here, and then slowly but surely I started to have issues I didn't even know what PTSD was. Long story short, I ended up homeless. I ended up on the street. I ended up in jail for being homeless. My parents and my family got me to a mental institution at the VA hospital, and it was a live-in program. So when I was there living in the mental institution called the domiciliary, they had different sorts of therapies. It was yoga, anger management therapy, and then they had an art therapy where you can go there, you can draw, you can do whatever you want. The therapist who ran the program, her cousin was the first female Oscar winner for a short film, and she introduced me to her. So when we talked, she was like, you should start writing. And she would meet me at Starbucks on my days out of the program, and she said, just write about whatever you want to write. And then she started teaching me how to write scripts and using what I'd gone through and turn it into stories, science fiction, horror, whatever. That's when I started to learn I could write, I can use the pain and the struggles that I've gone through and turn it into something positive. And it just so happened because my brother and I love horror movies, and we would always watch them, and that was our favorite genre. So I'm like, well, let me bring my story to a horror, sort of. And anyone who knew me could see the elements of me in everything that I've written.
Really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, going back to the military, you're writing as a person with PTSD as sort of a way to, manage your feelings and sort of create art out of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
What about the military in a positive way has impacted you in your work ethic, in the way that you write and prepare as an actor? What kind of role has the military played on your creative life?
If it wasn't for the lessons that I learned in the Marine Corps, I probably wouldn't even still be alive. I wouldn't be pursuing my passion. When I first joined the Marine Corps, I was a spoiled athlete. I got over just due to my athleticism. I worked hard, but I didn't work as hard as I should have, which is why I lost my football scholarship. But I didn't have any discipline. I didn't have any work ethic. I was very selfish. Joining the military is the opposite of that. You have to put others before you. That's part of leadership. There's no quit in the Marine Corps. So you have to be able to figure out a task. You have to be able to work with other people. You have to be able to learn other people's strengths, learn your strengths. You have to learn how to make something out of nothing. The Marine Corps is known for having the worst gear, the worst of everything, but we do the most with less. In the entertainment industry, especially when you're creating projects, you may have an iPhone and a light, a lantern or whatever, and you got to just make do and tell your story. I learned that there are no excuses for failure. Don't look for an excuse and you'll never find one. Just be able to persevere. So even though I was homeless here, everything that I've gone through, I knew that I can get through it. And even when I left the domiciliary program, I went to an acting conservatory. I already had the work ethic. I already had the discipline. I had all the tools that I needed in order to make it as an actor, thanks to the military, and that's why I'm still here.
Looking back on your body of work and your career, which role stands out to you as the most enjoyable, and what made it memorable and rewarding?
I heard Denzel Washington say this once, and he said, it's always the next role. It's always the opportunity, whether I audition for it and I book it or I come up with it myself. But just being on set, being amongst the cast and the crew, working hard and having fun while working, it's the greatest. And I always look forward to the next project. I never look back. I always look forward. So, okay, this is in the can. What's next? Okay, I'm done with this. This was a great experience. What's next? And yeah, I never look back. I'm always looking forward to the next thing.
What has been your inspiration through this whole process? Who, I guess, what actors have you looked up to throughout this whole process, and what makes them influential to you?
It's weird because I have a lot of actors that I admire, from John Cazale to the late Philip Seymour Hoffman to Mrs. Viola Davis, Whoopi Goldberg, you name it. But as it relates to my inspiration, it's always been my family, my mom, my brothers and sisters, just everyone who's been along with me for this ride. They've always been my inspiration. Most importantly, my Marine Corps brothers and sisters who didn't make it back home when I did, who didn't get to live their dreams, but I do. There isn't a day that goes by whenever I'm on set or even when I'm auditioning for something that I don't think about them and know that they're watching me. Just my family and my Marine Corps brothers and sisters as it relates to my motivation, but people that I admire, the list goes on of actors that I admire. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the family.
It seems like you take great joy in every part of the actor's process. Like most people hate auditioning. It seems like you kind of take pride in auditioning and recognize that as part of the journey. What has creating your own stuff meant to you? Why do you like to do it so much? How do you find the good parts and maybe grind it to make something that's meaningful to you? When
I was at my acting conservatory, I would get certain professors tell me, well, you're a big guy, you're 6'3", you're 260 whatever pounds, so you're going to be subjugated to these specific sort of characters, these sort of roles. And, me being headstrong, I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I get out in the real world and lo and behold, I'm playing thug number 1 through 5. I'm like, God, they're right. But I knew that I brought more to the table than these particular characters, because I always looked at typecasting as stereotypes. It's like I have pit bulls and I'm a big dude. And whenever I'm walking my pit bulls, people see me and the dog and they cross the street. So it's a stereotype, but if they talk to me, they would know I was a goofball. So I was like, let me start learning how to write my own material and start writing the things that I would want to be in. Another person that I really admire is Taylor Sheridan, because he started off as an actor and he was like, well, I'm not auditioning for the jobs that I want, so let me write the things that I would want to see or want to be in. So I started writing characters that I wouldn't normally be cast in, like Fear of Shadows. I guess I don't fit the mold of a child predator, and I would probably get cast as the law enforcement or whatever, but I wanted to challenge. I always write things for me that would challenge me, artistically, and to show my range. So yeah, anything that's going to scare the hell out of me, I'm all for it. And most of the times I have to write it myself.
You're a great creator. You've written some really cool stuff. You take it upon your shoulders to kind of make it all happen. What about your production company, 48 Mile? What do you anticipate that's going to do in your life? How do you want to see it affect the industry? Like, what does that company mean to you?
It means everything to me, especially for what it stands for. 48 miles is the miles that every recruit in the Marine Corps has to walk to graduate boot camp. After 3 months, when it's part of boot camp called the Crucible. And the Crucible is everything you learn through boot camp, you have to apply in like these 3 or 4 days where you have minimal food, you have to learn how to work together, you have barely any sleep, and it's basically to simulate war. And when you're tired, hungry, haven't slept, you got to march up this mountain that's called Mount Mother Effer, and it seems like it's never going to end. But in order for you to graduate, you have to climb this hill, and you can't, and you see recruits passing out the whole thing. But once you get on top of that mountain, you see a bunch of civilians and everyone's cheering for you, and a helicopter comes down and your information, and a general steps off the helicopter and he shakes your hand, and he's the first person to ever call you a Marine. Everything that you've gone through led up to this point right here, and it's the proudest moment of any Marine's life. It's hard not to get emotional about it, but it was the proudest moment of my life because I knew that it wasn't given to me. I earned every bit of that. And I remember when I shook the general's hand, I passed out because I had nothing left. I gave everything I had. And that's what my production company stands for, just giving everything that I have for myself, for the people that work on any of my projects. I want everyone to walk away with a great experience. I want to give others opportunities to tell their stories and just to do great things. And you remember when we were kids and when we first saw E.T. or when we first saw Star Wars and how it made us feel coming out of the theaters, and we're wearing the costumes and we're saying the quotes from the movies that we saw. And it's like, there's a lack of that these days. With my projects, I want to bring that back, not just horror movies, but comedies and just things, and just open up the door for other talented people that are way talented than me, just to give them a shot. But that's what 48 Miles means to me. It means teamwork. It means love. It means giving your all, not only for yourself, but for people that are in front of the camera and behind the camera, and just having an experience and bringing that feeling back to the theaters. That's what it means to me.
I love that. So you've got this guy who's on Mount Motherfucker, this young recruit.
Yeah.
First of all, you had a young football player who somebody saw a little bit of acting talent in him,
yeah,
to go that way.
Yeah.
You're on Mount Motherfucker and you wanted to die. Pass out a little bit. What would you tell that guy in that moment? Hey, we're gonna be an actor. eventually, right? After this is all done and you have your time here, we're going to go into acting. What would you tell that guy to look forward to what challenges to embrace? What advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell my younger self, get ready to work, get ready to cry, get ready to fail, get ready to fall, but get ready to stand up. And everything that you are getting ready to go through is going to lead you to something great. So one foot in front of the other and keep moving.
Could you give us any insights into your current projects, where audiences can expect to see your work next, on screen, behind the scenes, all the good stuff? Plug some fun stuff for us.
Well, I have 2 short films that I know I said I wasn't going to make any more short films, but I can't help myself. I have 2 short films that we're getting ready to shoot, maybe 3, because I came up with another idea. The 2 short films I didn't write, but I came up with the story. I had 2 lovely ladies, Kathy and Cody, write the story for me because I wanted to distance myself from it. But basically, it is about a former drug dealer who gets out of prison and finds out that he has this young daughter. And the mother of his daughter had died while he was in prison. So his young daughter is living with her teenage sister who's struggling. And I'm a felon, so it's hard for me to find work. But long story short, I find work in a gay bar, and they offer me an opportunity to make money doing gay for pay adult film. So it's this father doing something that he doesn't want to do in order to take care of his family. The subject matter, I know the gay for pay, everyone's like, wow, that's very interesting. But what drew me to the story is just the sacrifices parents make. Most children don't know in order for them to survive, especially close to home for me because of my mother. Got pregnant with me when she was 16 years old. She wasn't even out of high school yet. And my mother made certain sacrifices in order for me to have a place to stay, clothes on my back, just for me to survive. You don't appreciate those things when you're young because you don't understand. But when you're older and when you have kids, you have a greater appreciation for the sacrifices that parents make for you. And the subject matter of this man doing adult gay film who's straight, it intimidated me, but it drew me to the character, and I knew that I needed to take it on because I was afraid of it. That's intense. And then another short film that we're working on, it's called The Butcher's Shepherd. And basically it is about a serial killer who worked as a butcher, but he sees the homeless population increasing. So he believes that he's doing God's work by killing homeless people and chopping them up and selling them at the meat market. The shepherd, who is a demon for Satan, is basically trying to recruit this serial killer to join the army. And basically he's like, well, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to join the army. And she basically says, okay, I'm going to give you up to a year of freedom, and you're going to come with me, but you can't kill anyone. So it's the joke, what do you have when you take a preacher or a priest, a serial killer, and a demon, put them all in one room? And basically that's what the story is about. So it sounds funny, but it's some funny pieces to it. But it's pretty gory and it's pretty scary. But it's a funny it's some funny parts in it too. So those are the projects that I'm working on now as it relates to short films. And then I'm currently doing some rewrites on 3 feature scripts that we've already shot 3 of the short film versions of it, but now I'm finishing up the feature versions of it, and I have ADD, so I'm working on all 3 of them at once. So Trolled, The Brotherhood, Hyenas. So yeah, those are the 3 that I'm working on right now. So yeah, I've been really, really busy. Plus, I've been auditioning a great deal as well, but those are the projects, those are my individual projects that I'm working on.
Where can people expect to see those? Do you have a YouTube page?
Yeah. You can look it up on 48 Mile Productions. That's on YouTube, or Instagram, 48 Mile Productions on Instagram. And 4 or 5 of my short films are on there.
Thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, bud.
Good work.